Well, today at flight school we're going to be building the Chuck It. It's Chuck It. Yeah, I said Chuck It. This is the first design from Alfie Whitehead. That's Andy Whitehead's 16-year-old son. This is his first exploration into being a kit manufacturer. He's only 16, so come on guys and girls, get one. Let's support a youngster trying to produce a business, and follow me along with this build. It's a great one to build with your grandkids or with your children. So let's open the Chuck It and let's find out what's in the box. Now then, what do we got? So, set of instructions. Should be 2 pages. And then we have tailplane. That's the fin. And we have 3 fuselage sides. One you'll notice has got a little hatch on it. One has an opening. This is the fuselage boom. Don't throw this away. This is modelling clay, and that we're going to need that to get the centre of gravity right, which we'll speak about later. And then this is your outer wing panels, and these are your 2 main wing panels. Let me just put this all in place, and then you can use this. Don't chuck your box away at the moment. So, outer wing panels, 2 inner wing panels, fuselage sides, the fuselage boom, the fin, and the tailplane, also known as a horizontal stabilizer. So, right, first thing you should do, go away and read the instructions thoroughly, and then I'm going to show you exactly what you need. You don't really need a lot to build this. A couple of things are going to help. If you've got some white, this masking tape, so it's a low stick masking tape, that's the one we're going to use. The only other 2 things you're going to need is, you can either use a sanding block like this. So this is a foam sanding block with a very light grain on it, so you don't want a heavy grain. I've got a little sanding block on a piece of wood there, or if you're not new to the game and you've got one of those, this is an aluminium sanding block, which is very useful. And if you're looking at getting into building your own model aeroplanes, getting some of these from Permagrit, worth doing. But as I say, to start off with, you can just use this. The only glue I'm going to use is this wood glue from Angel Wing Designs, and that's on their website. I would highly recommend using this. You can use super glue if you want to. Now, the issue with super glue is that particularly when you're joining the wings, you'll find that super glue can spread. It can make the joint look a little bit dirty, and also it will be harder to sand once you've applied the super glue. So for this particular build, particularly for the wings, I'm using this PVA glue from Angel Wing Designs. So first thing we've got to do is we've got to get all the fuselage pieces together and then orientate them so that we're going to put them all together. Right, what you're going to build it on. So I have a little bit of what's known as foam board. So this is paper, foam, and then paper. You can buy this in square sheets, sort of A1 size, and that will be more than big enough to build this. I've got one here, and I've just added some sellotape, 2 lengths of sellotape, just clear normal sellotape just across the middle, and then I'm going to slowly build the fuselage over where the sellotape is, so we don't glue it to the bench. You can use, if you want to, there's another idea, that's a picture frame. That's the back of a picture frame, and that has also got some sellotape on as well, so you can use that. So let's crack on with the fuselage. So the first thing you're going to need to find is this fuselage half that's got the hole cut in the middle, and this is where our ballast is going to go. And then you're looking for this piece here, and you'll notice that they glue together just like that. Now I'm going to add the glue, and then just to hold them in place I'm just going to pop a little couple of pins in, one here and one here, just to hold it in place. Any sewing pins will do. You don't have to spend a lot of money on pins. Any sewing pins will do. If you don't have sewing pins, you could actually just hold the two sides together with a little bit of blue tack, and that's the first thing we're going to do. We're going to glue this. So don't go mad with your glue. With this you only need to glue one side. What I normally do is dispense a bit and then smooth it in like so, and then I am just going to push these together. Like so, and then I'm going to get my pin. Pop my pin there. I'm going to pop a pin there. Just make sure, don't push too hard, but you just make sure that the two sides are touching together nicely like so. Then I'm going to pop one in there, not too far back, but I'm just going to add one here. That stops it. And I'll tell you why I'm doing that is it's very easy to knock it and pull it apart. So that one is now in place. So while this glue is going off, you've got this little, it's like a little trap door here. This is designed to come out. Do not throw this away. We're going to need this, but what we're going to do is that goes back in your box for the time being. And then the idea is, well, I'm then going to add a glue strip all the way around the edge of this particular joint, and I'll show you. Let me show you this here. Look, so I'm just going to go around here, make sure you get plenty on the tip as well. A little bit round the center like so, and then we're just going to do the rest on the outside, just going around the outside further to the edge. You don't want any glue near the opening. We're just going to pop that around there like so. Plenty of glue around the front because that's the nose, and unfortunately it is going to have to take some impact. You can use a little bit of scrap wood or a little bit of scrap paper or even the end of a tissue, but I'm just smearing this glue round like so. Then I'm going to take this, unpin that. And then this then goes onto here like so. And you want to follow the top curve of the fuselage. You see how we've got this recess this side? So you want to make sure, and a good little tip here, if you get a ruler and just go round with your ruler just to make sure you've got no just stand it there, you've got no overhanging edges, and I'm just going to put that all into place like so. Right, that's all glued, and I would suggest we're going to need that, leave that a while for the glue to set. Just make sure that everything is just sitting down, and just remember we want that the top edge is nice and flush, and we're just going to make sure we've got no overhangs on the top with a ruler. I'm just going to let this to dry now. Just remember, when you finish doing your gluing, wipe the top, put the cap back on. Now, I bet you're champing at the bit thinking, oh, I've got those 3 pieces and I've got to wait to glue. Do not panic. Hence the reason, if we put it on here like this, put it somewhere safe that's flat, we can let that to dry. Let's crack on with the wings. So we're on to the wings, and I would say that this is technically the hardest bit to do or to get right, and there are 2 ways of doing this. Obviously what we're going to do is we want to be able to sand these, one, to an aerodynamic shape, an aerofoil shape. Now, if this is your first ever glider and when we get onto the next bit you don't fancy that, there is a simple solution. You can just round the leading edge off, which I will show you in a moment, and just taper the trailing edge. So the front of the wing is called the leading edge, the back of the wing is called the trailing edge, and that works for both of these. So my advice would be, this is where we need to transfer some of the lines on the plans onto the wing. My advice would be is don't use biro, because biro is going to be very, very difficult to sand and it's going to spoil the end finish. I would suggest you get yourself a pencil, but the top tip with a pencil, don't push too hard, you want a very faint line. But I am going to show you some little tricks along the way. So the first thing I'm actually going to do is I'm going to identify the right wing. Let me show you. So here's our plan, and this is the main panel and the outer panel. Now the end goal is we're also going to have to add some dihedral here to this wing and add some more dihedral here to this wing, so we call that polyhedral. So my advice would be, first is we're going to need to just get these shapes sanded properly. And what I'm going to do, right, first thing I've done is I've just extended this line. This is our drawing of the actual wing. I've extended the line out just as a guide and one here as a guide. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop that on there like so, and then with the ruler I'm just going to make a faint pencil line, and then also I'm going to transfer that to here as well. There's 2 ways of doing this. We can either put a pencil line across here, or if we want to, we can actually just use a little bit of that masking tape to give us a good sanding point, a good reference point. So if you don't want to use pencil, you can use tape, and I'm going to show you both methods now. Right, let me show you what I've done. I've extended those lines, I've got my inner panel and I've taken it to the line. Don't expect the plan to be exact, because there is a little bit of change in the photocopy. I've just taken mine from the leading edge, and you can see all I've done is I've extended that line with a pencil across, and I've gone to this one with a line across like so. Then I've got my outer tip and I've butted that up like so, and then I have then just extended those lines out to that center line like so. Now what do we do next? My advice would be is I'm going to turn this over, make sure it's all lined up. We're not gluing this, I'm just going to hold this together, and I've got one piece of masking tape on there like so, and I flip that over. Now this gives us our line to sand to this shape that you can see at the end. So this is the shape that we're ending to get to in the shaded area. Now If you're not sure about that, there's another way of doing this. Let me just show you the outer line, because what you can do is, if you want, is you can, and this saves you over sanding, if I get a bit of tape and put that to there like so, I can then sand back to that tape line, and if you see the tape beginning to become abraded, then you know you're getting a bit too close. And you can also extend that to the tip bit, obviously without going over, so you'd have to cut yourself a bit of tape to the right shape. Anyway, the idea of the tape on the back is so that we can sand the whole thing and get a nice uniformed sounding shape. So let's do the shaping for the basic, and then we'll go on to the pro version. Right, this is the basic bit. So, sanding block, I've got it just over the edge. I'm supporting the whole thing with my hand, and then all I'm going to do is I'm just going to work all the way down. Don't scrub it. You want to go just one direction. If you start scrubbing it and catch an edge like the join here, what you'll find is you'll break your wing. So see, I've got that. Look at the angle I've got. It's a sort of about a 45-50 degree angle, like so. That's it. And whenever we're doing any sanding, we're just, so there's that leading edge done. It's just got a little bit of a nice curve to it. Now I'm going to turn it over, and on the undersurface I'm going to do the same thing, but not to the same degree. So we're just the undersurface, I'm just taking the edge off like so. And good tip, just give that a bash every now and again, because that gets rid of any of the debris that's caught up in the block. So that's the basic leading edge done. Now trailing edge, for the simple version, you want to be a flatter angle, all of it on the bench. And then what you want to do is we're looking to taper the back like so. And you'll notice how I'm just applying just a little bit more effort onto this tip piece like so, because what we want is we want to slowly thin this out to the tip. Now, if sanding's not your thing, once you've got yourself a little bit of a taper like so, last thing is just roll it round the edges like so. See, I'm just bringing that round, again supported over the bench like so. Now if you're not into sanding, this will work. You're not going to get the best performance, but it will work. One last thing also is just on the bottom here, you can just round that off as well. So that's a basic sanding. Let's talk about doing something a bit more aggressive for those of you that want the performance. Right, I've now got my sanding block here, and what I'm actually doing is, you'll see that I'm sanding a lot more up to the pencil line. So what I'm actually doing is I'm not just sanding the edge, I'm sanding the whole wing right to the pencil line like so. But you notice how I've got most of it on the bench. It's just off the bench. There you go, like so. Don't push down too hard on here. So all I'm doing is I'm just working this round. Then I'm going to come round this side, and I'm just going to, what we're looking to do here, can you see how that pencil line is just beginning to fade? That's telling me that I'm getting good to where I want to go, because we want the tip thinner here than here. So this bit here, the main bit that joins the fuselage, that needs to be thicker than the tip. Ideally, aerodynamically, what we actually want is we want this thinner Right, now I'm just going to carry on doing that, and you can see how that the pencil is now just beginning to fade. Good idea. I normally wear a mask, just a paper mask when I'm doing this, or I've also got the hoover on. Right, that's the shape for the leading edge. Now I've just added some tape because I just want to show you this technique as well. Now the trailing edge wants to be super thin, but not so thin that it actually becomes translucent. So let me just show you this one. And again, also we want to start, we don't want it all the same thickness. So what we're looking to do, you see I've got this virtually, the block is virtually flat, but I'm just rolling off the wood. The wood is just on the end of the bench, and I'm just rolling that like so, because what we're looking to do, we want a nice thin tip, and then just stop, check. Yeah, we've got a lot more to do at the moment. Right, that's the trailing edge. This is what we're looking for. See how, now all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this bit of tape off, and then I am just going to sand this last little bit, and I'm going to slowly, the same thing, holding it here, and I'm now going to taper it just to get rid of the pencil mark. Right, we've done one wing. How are we going to transfer those marks to the wing when we're only looking at a right hand wing? This is going to be the most important piece of information on this video, so you don't end up making two right wings. So don't start the left wing until you've looked at this video. Let me show you. Now obviously we've got our right wing like so. We want to make a left wing, so I've put them on the plan like so, and I'm now going to flip that over like so, and I'm going to flip that one over like that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to butt that up to that wing, and then I'm going to mark that with a pencil, and I'm going to mark that with a pencil. I'm just going to drop that onto there like so, and mark that there, and mark that there. That then goes there. This one is I am going to flip over like so. I'm just going to mark the end, mark that like so, and then flip that back. Now we can do the lines for our sanding, exactly the same as before. That goes on there like so. It goes on there like so. And then that goes to there. And then that goes to there. And if you just pop that up next to the plan, next to the plan like so, we got that dead on. So I'm now just going to take the undersurface of this and then sand this wing exactly the same as the right wing, but I'm going to give you some tips as we go along. I'm going for the pro method, so I am going to sand it quite heavily, and then I'm going to get back to you. Now, done a little bit of sanding on the second wing. Let's show you something quite important. So I'm going to offer up sanded, half sanded. I'm just going to offer that up like so, and you can see where on here I still need to do some more work. So that's something to do, is just keep, particularly when you're doing leading edge and trailing edge, then you can just see how much more work you've got to do, and just have a feel round here and have a feel round at the tip, and you'll soon get a feel for what we need to do. So we need to do a bit more work on this leading edge. Now, I'm pretty happy with both sides. One last little bit of tape. I'm going to turn both wings upside down. And I am just going to add, I'm going to get them joined together like so. And I'm just going to add a bit of tape here and here, like so. Then we're going to flip them over and then have a good feel to see if it's all nice and smooth and it all joins. If it doesn't, then you can just gently get yourself a nice join, because what we've got to think of is the air is going to flow over this and we want it nice and smooth. So that's lovely, that's lovely. Just take a little bit off of there. Look at that, beautiful. Right, now that's one wing sanded. Oh, I'll be honest here, this is a bit like painting the Severn Bridge. You'll always find somewhere and you think to yourself that could be a little bit better, because we're always striving for perfection. Lovely. So the next step is we need to make ourselves some jigs to glue the wing together. Right, the main panel, where the two main panels join, we need the tip bit is raised by 10mm. So we're going to have to make ourselves an angle here so that they'll actually get a nice glue joint. And we're going to need to raise this by 10mm. Now, one of the easiest things I found is a Lego brick. Standard Lego brick is 10mm. Let me show you how to do it. So make sure you've got the main panel like so. So we want the outer tip is going to rest on the Lego bricks just here, right where the hole is, like so. And then we're going to move that back, and can you see I've just got this little edge is hanging over the edge, and all I'm going to do is with it, I am just going to go straight like so. I'm going to do that one. Now I've got the other side. This is the other wing panel, this is the left side, and again don't want to go mad. Then we're going to get those two together like so. So I'm going to get, there's one brick there on the outer, here's the other brick on the other one, and we're going to put them two together. I'm going to raise this one up. Right, look at that, we're almost there. I think I've just got to do just a little bit more sanding and we're there. Okay, so the outer, the tip has got to be raised by 30mm, which is that. That's 3 of these blocks. So I've got to make sure you've got your right panel and you've kept them orientated. And I am now going to pop that on there like so, That's going to go on there like so, and now I am just very carefully going to sand this one. Just remember, make sure that you're sanding the whole of the surface all the way through like that. Look. We do a couple, then we stop and we check. There you go, perfect. So that's that there. So remember, we're going to be having, this is at 30 degrees, this is at 10 millimeters, and this is at 30. I'm just going to do the other side and then we'll have a final assembly. I'm just going to do the left hand side, and you could, if you wanted to, if you haven't got any Lego, if you get some of the cardboard, you can just cut yourself some 30mm and 10mm templates just using the cardboard. Right, so we've now got to join the wings together. My advice, I would just do the main panels first, glue those, because while they're gluing we can go back to the fuselage. Let me show you how I'm going to glue them together. I've got myself some Yoo-hoo tack, might be known as blue tack, but I'm just going to get a little bit of this out. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to use it for. Is I am going to get it to hold my Lego bricks in place. So all I'm going to do, get it nice and warm. And then I'm going to get this brick, and then I'm going to put some, this, I put some tape on here, by the way. This is again another bit of that foam board, and I am just putting that to hold that brick in place. That's going to sit on there like so, and then we're going to get the other half, making sure that we got them round the right way. Should be pretty impossible not to do. And then I'm going to get that like so. And when I know that's all in place, I'm just going to mark this brick. There you go. And then we're going to get that brick, and we're going to get a bit more white tack, because this isn't blue tack. Okay, so what we're going to do is, I'm going to fix that there. I'm going to fix that there, like so. Then we're going to have a trial run. That is going to go together like so. So you can use super glue if you want to, but I do like this wood glue. It takes longer to go off, but I think the results are better. Right, so I'm just going to push those two bits of glue together. So I've got some on both sides, and then I'm just going to pop this in place, pop that in place, push them together. There you go. I'm just going to run my finger down there. Tell you, give it a little tip here. Just run a little bit of extra glue down here, and then wipe it off. We'll get a nice finish. Lovely. Right, just make sure it's sitting down properly in the middle, which it is. I'm now going to move this somewhere safe and we're going to crack on with the fuselage. So just remember, put the top back on the glue, and I've now got the fuselage here, and very simply all we're going to do is I'm just unpegging these, and I'm going to turn it over and then we're going to glue this onto here. Remember, we want the same orientation as in the top. I'm going to glue this in place. I'm going to put some pins just in here, and then we can start looking at the tail surfaces. So the main panel is dry, and all I'm going to do now is I've got my Lego blocks which are at 30mm, so you just want to check and make sure. It doesn't matter if it's sort of 31, 32, but you want to make sure that both sides are identical. And a little cheat I've done here to help, I've just added a little bit of masking tape underneath. That helps to keep it in place, and you'll find that with the wood glue, if you take that off very slowly, you won't have, as long as you've let it dry completely, you won't have any issues with that sticking. But just be careful, you don't have to do that, but that's just one of Nick's top tips here. The nice thing is I can now pour the glue in, and then I'm just going to jig this up. Just remember, just check that you've got the height is exactly the same. So get down, have a look across the bench, and then get your ruler and just have a little bit of a check. And then when you've got it all jigged and you're happy in place, you might want to use just a little bit of blue tack just to hold the bricks in place. But that's my next step. What I've done is I've closed that up, and then I've just smoothed out all the excess glue, and now we're going to sit this down and get this fixed into position. But as I say, don't worry if you're slightly out with your dimensions, what you got with your height, but what you want to do, the critical thing is make sure that it's exactly the same height either side. Cool, well, we've got our wing going off, so now we can go back to the fuselage. We've got our three sides are all joined together. Now, when you look down at the top of the fuselage, you're going to see two lines. One is where the front one is where the fuselage is joined, and then there's a line at the back. That mark is for the back of the wing. So that is where the back of the wing is going to sit. So what I've done is I've measured the cord, and the cord is on a wing, well the thickest part of this cord is here. I've measured this here from the actual wing, and it's 75mm. So from this back line, I've measured forward 75mm like so, lightly marked it with a pencil. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get myself a nail file, and it says in the instructions to actually just, you don't have to do this, but you will get a better glue joint if you do this. And what we're looking to do is just to sand ourselves a V between those two lines, all at the same depth, so that the wing will then sit into a V-shaped groove. That will give you a better surface area for the glue to actually join the wing to the fuselage. So I'm just going to do that with this. I'm just going to use this nail file, and it doesn't matter if you go slightly past the line, but look, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to gently go backwards and forwards, and I'm going to cut myself a V. Now at the moment, because we've got the wing going off, we're not going to be able to test this completely, so I'm going to go a fair bit down on either side, but then I'm going to leave it. So I've just done that one side, and I'm going to turn this around. Oh, top tip, just be careful of this, because at the moment this is quite fragile, so if you're doing any sanding, just support it on the bench. Look, so I'm just going to do this V like this, and I'm going to do that either side. Let me just show, oh hang on, let me just show you. So I'm just sanding this V down the middle, and you'll notice I've got my finger there, and the finger is working like a guide. So if I just work up and down like so, up to those 2 pencil lines, I'm just going to sand myself a nice V. Now, I'm not going to do the whole thing because we're going to have to do a little bit of trial and error when we've got the glue sanded. So if you wanted to, well, sorry, when we've got the wing finish, but if you just do it now, that's going to be an aid memoir, because you don't want to be doing it when you've got their tail surfaces on. So I'm going to do, we can do a little bit of little bit of jiggling if we want to, but we don't want to be doing the major part of this sanding when we've got the tail surfaces on. So I'm now going to do this. The other thing I'm going to do is I am just going to sand lightly around the fuselage just to give me a nice smooth surface. This I'm not going to touch. This part of the boom I'm going to leave because that would be easy for you to break. My suggestion is just sand everything from the trailing edge forwards, and what you're looking for is just a nice rounded edge. Right, sanding the fuselage, I've just got it on the side, and I am just going to take the lip off and just make sure that it's all nice and smooth. Don't go mad with this. Let me just show you what I've done, and this will give you quite a good guide. That's all I've done. I've just rounded that edge off. You don't want to overdo it because you're going to weaken the fuselage. So I'm just going to do the undersurface. What I might do is just a little bit of sandpaper and just take that off like so. But it's not hypercritical, just like so. Right, so I've cleaned my fuselage up. I've not gone mad. You can see, I've just rounded the edges. I've only gone back to here. I have cheekily just tapered that off. It looks nice, but you don't have to do that. That's got my little groove in the center. That might need some adjustment. So the next thing we're going to do, we need your horizontal stabilizer and the vertical stabilizer, or your fin. You don't have to sand these. If you want to be dead cheeky and just put a tiny little bit of a leading edge on it, you can do, but be very careful because they're quite fragile. Same with the fin at the front, but it's not critical. Now, what you want to do is measure across here. It's 135 across the biggest part of the span. So we're going to mark ourselves a center line with a very light pencil, and then that's where it's going to drop down, and it's going to fit. See this front groove here? It's going to fit on there, and what we need to do is make sure that when we glue this on, that it is 90 degrees to the fuselage. Let me show you what I'm going to do. Right, I got halfway, 67.5, marked a line, and then pencil down. I am just going to put mine in place and just give it an eyeball. Just give it an eyeball and then check with the ruler either side just to make sure. Now, there's a number of things you can do. You can use your wood glue and then put some pins in to hold it in place. If you're feeling brave, I would suggest pop some pins in, and if you want to use super glue, you can do. My advice would be I would use the wood glue, but it just means it's going to take longer to go off, but you will get a better join with that. So I'm just going to pin these now, and then I'm going to come back and show you how we're going to do the vertical surface as well. Also, possibly either a set score. If you use the square end of your ruler, you can check to make sure that it's actually sitting square against the fuselage. Right, I put the vertical stabilizer on. Now, for the purposes of this video, I've used a super glue, because otherwise if I'd have used the wood glue, I'm going to have to wait another day to come back to show you, but that's how it sits. Fairly obvious. That's what I don't like about the super glue. Look how that, I mean, it's a fantastic joint, but look how that's leached into the balsa. Anyway, I'm now just going to make sure that my wing is dry, and then we will come up with a plan. Right, last thing to do is I've just stuck the wing on. It's dead easy. Now, the only top tip with this is that when you offer it up, if the wing wants to be square to the fuselage either side, that's going to be difficult because obviously we've got a bit of dihedral either side, but you can actually look down and look at the gap, eyeball the gap underneath the ruler either side, like so. That would give you a good idea. The best tip I've found is if you just look down the fuselage and then slowly drop the nose and look at the tail and see if the tail disappears behind the wing exactly the same. I had to do just a little bit of filing, well, use this nail file just on one side just to get it sat squarely, so just be careful with that. I've used wood glue with this, and obviously that's why I've left it pinned. As I say, you can use super glue if you want to. If you are going to use super glue, a little top tip, if you're using the very runny super glue, and if you think you've got it in place, just put a little tack at the back, check it, and then just add a little bit more as you go along, and just keep, there's no need to pour loads of super glue straight in, just put a little bit, tiny little spot, no more than the head of that pin, just in one corner. That will nip it in place, and then you'd find you might be, if you have got a little bit of sort of leanage, aeronautical term, but that's it. So the only thing we need to do now is I'm just going to get back to you about what we're going to do about, hopefully you haven't chucked the cover away for this, and then we're done. Right, we have finished the chuck it. Now, one last thing to do. We've got to get the centre of gravity right. Now, we work out the centre of gravity is 25 millimeters from the leading edge. This is the leading edge, the front of the glider. So if you get your ruler and then measure there, 25 millimeters, you can see I've marked it with the pencil. Now, watch what happens at the moment. If I drop my fingers on there, it drops backwards, so it means it's going to need some weight. So what you want to slowly do is just particularly try and drop it into the as far forward as possible to start off with, because that's where you're going to get the highest moment arm of the weight. So you don't want to put it at the back of the hole, at the back of this slot here. And if you can, make sure that you keep it clear of the so I've just added some there, and you'll see we're getting there. So that's the thing to do. We're going to slowly add the weight, keeping it flat so that we can obviously close this lovely hatch that they've provided. So there's a bit more. Oh, we're getting close. There. That's the centre of gravity. Now, obviously we're going to pop this in to cover it up, and you can use just a little bit of tape just to cover it up. But at the moment we don't want to be sticking this down, because we're going to need to do some experimenting, because every glider is slightly different. So we are going to leave this empty, well, with the weight in at the moment, and then we're just going to, the next video will be me doing some test flights and showing you how to trim the chuck it. So there you go, that's Chuck It by Alfie Whitehead, age 16, surely must be the youngest kit supplier in the UK. Pop along to Angel Wing Designs, particularly for grown-ups. If you've got any grandchildren that you want to build a lovely building project with, I say, if you're good with super glue, you can smash it out quite quickly. I prefer wood glue, because now any teachers watching and you want a great project for school children, this is the one. It will need some supervision from the sort of, I'd say, about the under 10-year-olds, but great project, and they can be built over a couple of weeks, and you get to use Lego. Anyway, thanks very much, like and subscribe, and in the next video for this I will show you how to trim and fly the Chuckit. Well done, Alfie.